Hi, and welcome to tonight's Action Coaching Club live training call. Tonight we're going to be looking at an introduction to tracking video statistics, or I guess I should probably call that video tracking statistics. Okay, I'll change that just for fun. Can you tell I'm compulsive? You know how we always say, don't be a perfectionist? Well, guess what? It's not so, it's a lot easier said than done, isn't it? All right, let's try that again. Oh, we're not really doing that. Let's go. There. That's what I want to do. Welcome to tonight's Action Coaching Club training call, an introduction to video tracking and statistics. Hi, it's Lou. Nice to be here with you tonight. If you're on the East Coast experiencing the power shortage, hope everything is okay and that you recover quickly so that you can watch this replay, which I know you're dying to get to. So this is kind of an interesting subject, and we're not going to spend a lot of time. I intentionally call this an introduction because I'm going to show you one way to do this that I think is pretty handy. It's pretty easy. It's got its pros and its cons, but it's a pretty decent way to get this particular issue taken care of. So it is an introduction. I'm going to introduce you to a free tool that I'm starting to use for tracking my video statistics, and it seems to be pretty good. And I want to introduce it to you, recommend that you start playing around with it. And it's going to be a fairly short introduction, so I think we'll have time for some round robin Q&A coaching at the end of it as well. So let's talk a little bit about tracking in the video age. So it used to be, or at least we still can track individual links and page visits and things like that. And that's fairly easy. We get our Google Analytics account, we put the code on the page, and so now we're tracking all the visitors to the page. We're seeing which pages they came from, where they landed, how long they stay, and these are all important things to know: which content, which pages, which of the things that we have out there are being consumed and visited actively. But there's a challenge. So now we're starting to use videos, and whereas before, if we clicked over to a page, we could have a tracking link that counted how many times people visited a page. Well, now if there's a video on that page, we want to know a little bit more than just the fact that they visited and how long they were on that page. We want to track the engagement statistics for the video. So that includes things like the number of times that the video was played, how far into the video people watched, because after all, if it's, for example, if it's a sales letter or a sales presentation and your offer shows up at the 50-minute mark and people are dropping off at 45 minutes, that's going to tell you a lot about why your video isn't converting very well, right? We want to know which parts of the video were watched most. We want to know how many people embedded the video and shared it around, a whole lot of things like that. So basically, it's a little bit more sophisticated because we want to track, more accurately track the engagement at the level of the video, not just at the level of the web page that the video is on. So we need something a little bit more than just Google Analytics or link tracking. Because we have videos everywhere, right? We have videos. Our marketing videos are all on the social sites, and they're all on the video portals like YouTube and Vimeo and Blip and Vidler and so on. And these are the sites that we use for marketing our Freeline content to generate leads to our sites. They also appear in our conversion videos. So videos on the opt-in pages that convert visitors to leads, videos on the sales letters that convert prospects to buyers, videos that we use in launch sequences where it's really important to know how well the videos are being received in our launch sequence, because we want to know, are they starting to lose interest by video 2? Are they starting to lose interest by video 3? Do we need to take some action? And of course on our blogs as well, so that we can follow along and see which of our content people are most interested in, but not most interested in just from a point of view of visiting the page, but actually engaging with the video. So there are other metrics we want to keep track of, like number of times shared and comments and all this kind of thing, but we also want to see how actively people are watching and paying attention to our videos. We also have videos in our products now, right? We have them in our digital products that people download. We have them behind member area. We have special training for clients and coaching calls and things like that. And wouldn't it be interesting to know, when you release product in members area, would it be interesting to know how many of those products are being watched? and which ones are being watched and how fully they're being consumed. Well, that'll tell you a lot of really good information about which of your content is being most received by your audience and which is more important for them. These are really I like to monitor statistics without asking people for feedback, right? Because then they're kind of naturally doing what interests them without any kind of interference or awareness that anybody's monitoring or asking for their feedback. They're just kind of naturally doing their thing. And then as we monitor that, we can get a really clear idea of what is important to them and how important it is to them. Now, the thing is that everywhere you go, if you're on YouTube or Blip or Viddler or Vimeo or on your blog or on Facebook, whatever, each of these things uses a different platform. It's either self-hosted or it's hosted on a service. And of course, every service has their own player, their own video player. So it gets a little bit challenging, right? So you could go into YouTube and you can monitor your YouTube player stats. You can go into Viddler and monitor your Viddler player stats. You can go into Vimeo and monitor your Vimeo player stats. But, every one of these things is a different tracking tool and different players, and, it's just a little hard to manage. Wouldn't it be nice if we could use the same tool for a lot of different sites? And on top of that, and not only the most popular video sites like the portals, but also the videos that we play ourselves on our blog pages, on our websites, on our sales letters, and our products, and all those other areas. Well, one of those tools actually does exist. It's called InPlay from TubeMogul.com. And if you remember, TubeMogul is the service that's kind of like Traffic Geyser. It allows you to upload a video and then it syndicates them to the most popular video sharing sites. So it's just an easy way to avoid you having to individually upload your files to each one of those different, like YouTube, Vimeo, Viddler, Blip. You bring it up to TubeMogul, and TubeMogul disseminates them or syndicates them out to those sites for you. So recently, they introduced a service called InPlay, and InPlay is a video statistics gathering and activity monitoring kind of program that is part of TubeMogul. And all you need to do if you want to use it is open up a TubeMogul account. It's absolutely free. So excellent value for what you're getting. And the cool thing about it is, as you'll see, you can pretty much track the most popular video players and the most popular hosting sites and sharing sites, and you can track on your own sites, and you can even track players that are custom designed. So there are other options that you can use for tracking your video stats, and certainly you could use the tracking facility that each of these video sharing portals comes with, but InPlay will allow you to track the most popular hosted video portals and sharing sites. Two of the most popular video players, actually more than just two of the most popular video players, but the two that are the most popular, Flow Player and JW Player, are actually supported very well. And it also allows you to embed the tracking codes for video play inside your own. If you had a Flash player custom designed, or you have an HTML player or Silverlight, there's a way. It's a little bit more technical, right? Because you're doing it sort of under the hood yourself, but it's a really flexible and portable piece of service, or I was going to say piece of software, but actually service that's provided for you. And the best part of all, of course, is, at least for now, it's still free. So let's just take a look behind the scenes. Let me show you real quick what all is involved. So this is TubeMogul, and TubeMogul.com is the is the URL where you can get there. Now, what we want to do is head down to this. You don't need any. This is all the advertising, things like that. OneLoad is the video distribution facility. That's where you upload a video and it gets distributed to the other platforms. What we want to look at is the InPlay video player analytics. So you can have a look here and read about it. Just a quick introduction tells you what it does, and it's actually quite good. It's completely customizable, tracks by a number of different parameters as real-time viewership, engagement, and video, right? So, and it integrates any site, any player, any runtime environment. That's the claim to fame, which is really what we're after. So let's look at, that's inside the account. So what we're going to want to do at some point, not just quite yet, because I'm going to take you inside the account in a second, but if you go into the integration menu, and then you're going to be able to see that there are very specific guidelines as to how to integrate this into your video. So first you have to set up a free TubeMogul account, which I already have. Then you activate your in-play account, and that's just really saying set up my in-play account, and I'll show you that in the members area. And then you take a look at all of the different video players that they support. So these are, if you want to integrate your own player, they have guides to do that. If you want to put it on Brightcove, Castfire, Mobile Rider, Blip, Twistage, Kit Digital, Dell, Vidler, any of these platforms, you can do it there as well. Brightcove, Flow Player, Kaltura, all of these are the video players that are, you can get individual video players, but Brightcove actually is a service. Kaltura has a service. So there's some plugins here, there's some players, and then there's some hosting services as well, right? And then of course, if you want, you can contact, if you're working with an account that's not listed here, you can contact them to figure out how to integrate it. So it's very thorough, and it is possible to integrate in all of the players that you're going to be using. Now, the two players that are my favorite, that are the most popular as far as I can tell right now, is the JW player. This is the one that I use. I've been using for a long time. It's not the only one that I use, but it's my favorite one. It's the one I use the most. And then Flow Player. A lot of people like to use Flow Player. That's I think because it's perceived to have better licensing terms. But the truth is that if you look at the licensing terms, you have to pay when you're using it for commercial purposes. Most people don't, because they hear it's open source, but open source doesn't necessarily mean free. So there is a free version for non-commercial use on both of these players, and then there's a commercial version, but you're only talking about 50 or 80 bucks max for the kind of unlimited use. Now, JPlayer is really well maintained by Longtail Video. It's kept up to speed with all of the new developments in HTML5 and Flash embedding and Flash fallbacks and OGG and MP4 and WebM and all of the standards. They're a real active group of people, and I'm very happy to pay them my 80 bucks because they maintain the bejeepers out of this player. And Flow Player also is an excellent one. So those are the two that are the most popular, and you may find other ones in here that are the ones that you use. If you're not using any one of these players yet, what I would recommend is take a look at JPlayer and Flow Player, and think about integrating those into your sites. Now, there are some other services like EasyS3 and Easy Video Player and things like that that kind of integrate those players in and do some statistics, but I think you'll find that the in-play statistics are a lot more complete and a lot more informative, and a lot more data for you to take action on. So before we dig in to find out how all this works, by the way, I went through this demo just before we got on the line, and of course, wouldn't you know it, just before I got on the line, what I tried didn't work. So, I'm not sure. I'm flying a little bit by the seat of my pants here. So don't be dissuaded if we run into challenges. This does work, and it's fairly easy. I might just be missing a piece right now. But here, if you look inside my TubeMogul account, the other day I went in and I set up a player. This is one that I did just for you guys. I was setting it up the other day. I took a look. I put the player together. I tested it. I viewed it one or two times, a handful of times, and sure enough, it's showing up in the statistics. This is something I was playing with today, as you can see, just before I got on the call with you. And so this is what the back panel looks like. But let me start by going first to showing you my account, because here's what we want to do. We go into my account and we want to look at the in-play settings. And the in-play settings, because we want to set up our players first, right? So the first thing that I did was I set up a site, because this is the site that I want to track activity on. So I have a WordPress blog on gurucoaching.com. So I specify this gurucoaching.com domain, and that's the one that I want to track activity for. I gave it a name, and it gave me an ID. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, for reference sake, I'm going to put this ID on a notepad in case I need to use it later to plug in to one of the demonstrations. Okay, so I'm just going into Notepad and I'm pasting that in, and then and of course I created it, and the way you create it is very simple. You just all I did was say Guru Coaching, and then give it the link, and then create the new site ID, and voila, I have a site to track. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to manage players, and once again, really simple, but what I did was I created one player, which is the JW player, and one player which is the Flow player. And it's as easy as just saying, what I did here is I said ACC demo, and then I picked the player, In this case I said JW player, and then I said create new player, and voila, whoops, the player has been created. Oh, looks like I just created another one. I have 2 demos now. Okay, let me change the name on this one. Didn't think it would allow me to do that, but strangely enough it did. That's interesting. Okay, so I've got 2. This is kind of weird. I didn't know it would actually let you do that. Maybe you do want to have the same name. I can't imagine why. But you have 2 different identifiers for each player, so it's good. This is something you're going to want to know, because when you are tracking the play, you want to know which one of these. This is just going to be a way to track plays from the same video player. Okay, so I'm going to say, let me use this one. I'm going to say JW Longtail. I'm going to paste that into my notepad so that I can get easy access to it later, because we will need it. And I'm also going to track the flow player. I'm going to copy this and move that also into my notepad. Now the notepad is on my other screen, so you can't see it because I got a whole bunch of other stuff on there, but just know that all I'm doing is copying and pasting that over. Okay, so now I've defined players that I can now use to track the activity of certain videos. And then if I want, I could also create trackers. And trackers, you know, if I want to really narrow down which, within the player, if I want to narrow down even more specifically what website, what blog page, whatever, then I can get, I can create trackers, and I can put the tracker in the video player specification, and then it just gives me a finer level of granularity in my reports and my testing. So for now, I'm gonna go ahead and get this. I don't know if I'll use it or not, but I'll go ahead and copy it and put it into my notepad for reference. It's optional. You don't have to do this, but if you really want to get specific with your details, you can. And this was as easy as just, I just said Guru Coaching all here, and then clicked on create new tracker, and voila, this was created for me. Okay, so now I've defined the site that I'm going to track. I've defined the players that I want to track, and I might have even designed trackers for each one of the individual players to get even more specific about where those players reside, for example. And that's it. I'm done setting it up. At this point, what I can do is go to my in-play, and I'm going to give you just a quick look at some of the. Now, obviously, I just set this up the other day for you as a demo account, so there's not a whole lot of activity here, but you can see just some of the kinds of reports that you can get. So this will tell you, you can export, you can share, you can reset all this, but it'll tell you how many views, how many unique views, and you'll notice it's just me having watched both videos 12 times. I'm the only new viewer. I watched for about 2 minutes each one, right? Because all I'm doing is testing. And I only play, so this is the total time. For 2 minutes, I played it about 10 seconds at a time. And that's all I'm doing, right? I embedded the code, I refreshed the page, I made sure it was working. I changed the code, I refreshed the page and made sure it was working. So sure enough, on average, I'm looking at the page about 10 seconds, and in total, I watched about 2 minutes worth of video. Okay, and then it's got a whole bunch of things like how many, this is going to be really important for you, how many people actually complete watching the entire video, how many watch 75% of it, 50% of it. So you want to know how far in people get as they're watching the videos. This will tell you. And then it's always interesting to know how many people actually watched it on average per day, and how many at the peak watched it per day, and how long on average were they watching. So if you've got a 20-minute sales video and on average people are watching for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, well, you're going to want to check into that. Okay. Now you can set up channels where you have a whole number of videos. In this case, one of my channels was Guru Coaching, and if I set up a channel on YouTube, on the site, and I have people actually subscribing to my channel, then I can search for the user and find specifics about the video watching habits of that particular user. So right now I don't have any channel subscriptions. And so, but you can notice that you'll see which videos are being watched the most, where people are watching from, how engaged they are, and how many times they embedded it, how many people embedded the video on their blogs and web pages and so on, right? So you can, but you can definitely watch that. This is within a channel, but overall in my account, I can look at the top videos. And of course, I only have a couple of videos that I did for testing. So one is ACC test video and one is sample video. Okay, so this is the one that I put up just before the call. I had 11 views, and you can see, how each of your top performing videos are being consumed. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail because these stats aren't really too complex, and I don't want you to get all research and numerical on this. I just want you to sort of watch for big exceptions. The rest of it, if everything seems okay, you don't have to do too much. But if you really were noticing that people were watching 10 seconds and getting 9% of the way through an hour-long webinar video that you've got, that is your main presentation for selling people into your coaching program, you're going to know that's something to be very concerned about. Okay, how many people are watching 3/4 of the way through? How many people watch all the way through on average? Okay, and this is important information that you can take action on. You may also want to know where people are watching from. So where in the world are they? And this should be, for me, should be all within North America, I would think. Retrieving data. Okay, let's just wait and see what happens here. Yeah, and I have a fiber connection. Yeah, okay, so as you can see, basically, Canada is where all 12 views came from. So that makes sense. That was me. And then we can look at what cities. So it came from Canada, all 12 views, from Toronto, which is where I am, and you can look at the countries again. Okay, so if you want to know where people are watching your videos from, now you can know that as well. If you want to know how many people are using your videos on their web pages and embedding it and sharing it with their audience, of course I didn't embed anything, so I had views but I had no embeds, so that basically is 100% embedding. Oh no, that's not right. I did embed it. I embedded it on my blog. That's why I was going to say, why is that 100%? But actually I embedded it on my blog. That's where I was testing to see that the thing worked, and so each of the 12 views counts as an embed on gurucoaching.com, because my blog is at gurucoaching.com/WP. Okay, so, and engagement, this will just tell you how actively people are engaged. But this is the fun thing. So as your video plays, let me just turn the volume down on this for a second. This is really interesting because what it's going to do is it's going to tell you where people are engaged. So as your video plays, okay, watch this orange line, and this orange line is basically going to tell you where people are dropping off in the video. Now I don't know if this is the real video. This might be a demo. I'm not 100% sure. Oh, maybe because it's only 46 seconds. Well, if this was long enough, this is only about a minute. So what you would see is you would see that orange bar moving along with the video, and then you could see exactly what part of the video or what's showing on the video as people are losing their attention. And so for me, I just basically refreshed it. I watched to make sure it was working. I had 2 or 3 embeds, and then I just moved off, right? So I might want to know, if I take a look at it, it's probably right there that I actually started to wander off. And this is actually very cool. Okay, and you can do this, excuse me. You can do this for whichever video you happen to be tracking. So
with Tube Mogul.
Okay, this should hopefully work a little bit better. Let's see if that orange line moves. All right. For some reason that orange line isn't moving. Okay, fair enough. I'm not sure exactly why, but maybe it's not enough stats there. Let's see how this works. Okay, can't get that to work. However, get into your account and play around and you'll be able to figure it all out. But you can see I haven't watched anything for more than 21 seconds, and we're already into like the point where it's over. Okay, but so that's the way it's supposed to work. I'm not going to bother trying to figure out exactly why it doesn't work, but when you get this running and have a lot of activity, you'll start to be able to watch each one of your videos, and as it plays, you'll see exactly where the video is when there's different levels of activity. And you may find, in fact, that people are bored by the front end and then they start peaking up engagement later on. Not exactly sure how they measure that, but I guess it must be the level of activity on the mouse or something like that, where they kind of estimate how engaged people are. And I suppose if you have a video with interaction, then they can track mouse behavior and clicks and things like that. Attention span, again, I'm not exactly sure how they measure attention span, whether it has to do with the amount of movement on the screen or anything like that. But as you can see, I'm paying most attention in the first 10 to 20 seconds. Okay, and so this is really interesting because I'd have to read up to find out exactly how they measure it, but wouldn't it be interesting to know that after 60 seconds they're not paying any more attention whatsoever? So that basically if you had a 25-minute video and after 60 seconds nobody's paying attention, this is really important stuff to know, right? Categories. So this is the category of your tracking. So here, for example, I could look at Guru Coaching, Power Up Coaching, or whatever domain and tracking I set up. I could look just at that particular category. Okay, and I don't have a whole lot going on right now in each of those categories. Just a couple of views here, like I said a few days ago and today. Right, so so you can narrow down, and instead of looking at it for all of them, you can go and you can measure views. You can measure how long. Let me just take a look at this. Yeah, there you go, about 4 seconds. That's about right. Okay. So traffic, these are traffic sources, and probably a good idea to know where people are coming to watch your videos from. And if you find that a lot of people are coming from a particular site, you might want to call that site and see if you can do some kind of joint venture with them. Search terms are always really interesting. So you can see what keywords people are finding you with. Now, I didn't actually type any keywords. I just put the direct link in, so I have no search terms. Stream quality. So here's, this is interesting if you want to know, for example, some people have audiences in rural areas, right? And so you want to know what the stream quality is and whether people were, losing and rebuffering. Rebuffering basically means that they lost data and had to send it again, how much bandwidth they used, how much was wasted. If you have a lot of bandwidth wasted, that means you probably have a high-speed line over which your video is being sent. If you have a low bandwidth wasted, it probably means that most of the bandwidth is being consumed by your data, and it's possible that you might want to reduce the resolution or reduce the size of the video, because people might be having a hard time. They might be seeing it stutter and not have, if they're on satellite in some rural area, maybe they're not able to see it comfortably. So that'll tell you that maybe you want to reduce the frame rate or the size of the video or the bandwidth or whatever, and hopefully adjust those to the point where most of your users on average are having a good user experience. Anyway, and we go on, people who had errors, where were the errors by geography, where did people have video play errors. And of course, demographics is an interesting one. Again, I'm not 100% sure how they get this, because in my case, well, you can see I'm unknown to them. So I'm guessing it must have to do something with, I really don't know. I'd be totally speculating, but apparently they have some way to estimate this. I would not take this for gospel truth, but it's a sure interesting indicator, right? Because especially if I'm doing something like advertising on banners or placements or Facebook or whatever, I sure would like to know who's watching my videos so that when I advertise, I can advertise to this demographic. All right, so you can see there's lots of really interesting and informative data that you can then use to optimize the content, the placement, the sizing, the configuration of your videos, and so on. And you can get a sense of where they're being viewed, which ones are being viewed, how much they're being viewed, and how much they're being shared, which are really important things for you to be able to make decisions on. Now, obviously, you don't need to do this for every single one of your videos. I mean, if you do, that's great. But the ones that you think are important freeline content, and you're making a big push getting ready for launch, and you're putting out some opt-in videos or some freeline content, you want to make sure people are consuming it, and then that way you're reaching people, and not only are you reaching them, but they're actually enjoying the content. Okay, so how do we do this? How do we get these numbers to show up? Well, what you have to do is you have to add a little bit of code inside the player code. So this is a little bit under the hood. If you're a little scared technically, hang on, it's a little bit of a white knuckle ride, but not lots. So what I'm going to do today, let's start with this redo of the InPlay demo. So if you'll remember, InPlay was the video statistics tool that I suggested that you use. I'm going to show you real quickly how to set it up with JW Player and Flow Player, which is currently the two, I would say, probably two most popular players on the web. Although there's another one called JS, HTML5 JS, I think, that's coming up now. But anyway, then I'm going to show you, once you've got the file working, how to embed iframes and how to use iframes to embed it in your blogs and other posts. Then I'm going to show you a couple of really cool WordPress plugins that I use from time to time, and it really helps because of the way WordPress, the WordPress editor works. And you'll see what I mean a little bit more as we get into that. So let me switch over. And okay, so what we're looking at here is two files that I created earlier. Now, if you'll remember, if you go to TwoMogul.com and into the solutions area and then the InPlay video player analytics, you're going to find that there's a tool here that they have. It's a free tool where you can actually hook up your JW or Flow player, and you can track the number of plays, the number of views, how long it played, and so on. And what I did was I went through the integration modules, and a combination of this, and then I went over to flowplayer.org and jwplayer.com, and I used the code that they recommend we use, along with the this part here underneath where it says utilize a supporting plugin. I just sort of follow the instruction for the JW Player plugin and then for the Flow Player plugin. Okay, so I'm just going to refer you, if you want to see it in more detail, you can go ahead and look those things up. We talked about them a little bit the last time, so I'm not going to go over it again. But just so that you know, this is these are the resources that I use to actually come up with the files that you're going to see tonight. And in essence, what I did in one case, longtailvideo.com has this wizard right here, and the wizard actually makes it easy for you to generate code for the JW player. So I want a single video player. My particular installation is on this domain, and what I did was change this to 409 by 600, and then pretty well left the rest the same. You update and preview the code. That's what the video player looks like. Okay, and then all I did was I highlighted this code, copied it, and then I put it into this file called inplay-jw.html. I'm going to show you the code there in a second. And then the other thing that I did, though, was I went over and I went to the plugins and I chased down how to set up a plugin right here. Okay, so the JW embedder reference guide, and then I looked at plugins, because what I wanted to see was how do I put a plugin into the player code. Okay, so then I discovered that what I do is I put the word plugins, then the name of the plugin, and then the parameters for the plugin. Okay, so this is big, long, complex URL, but if you just follow what I did there, which was if you go to, let me just click you through down there again. What I did was I came to plugins, and then when I came here, I just took the first plugin here, which I happen to know Google Analytics Pro has a reference to embedding it, and then here it says it requires the JW embedder code, so I clicked on that. And because JW Player embedded code is the way that I actually prefer to embed my code, and then I just scroll down to plugins. Okay, if you're interested in knowing, you don't have to know this, you can just use the files that I gave you, but if you're interested, this is what it looks like. Okay, and my particular thing that I was looking for was how do I add a plugin, because what I want to do is I want to add the TwoMogul InPlay plugin. Okay, now I'll log in here real quick so that we can actually use we can use a okay. So we'll use some of these actual IDs in the demonstration to show you where they would go. Okay, and then the other thing that I did was I went to flowplayer.org and went into the demos, and then from the demos I just looked at the minimal installation. Okay, nothing fancy, just the minimal installation. And then the minimal installation, it says there's a standalone version of this code. So I went to look at the standalone version, and then essentially what I did was I viewed the page source. Okay. And essentially copied and pasted this into the file. Just highlighted the whole thing with the Control A, copied it, oops, and then went to my in-play flow here, in-play-flow.html, and just pasted it in here. And then what I did was I went back to TubeMogul because I wanted to know how to embed plugins in FlowPlayer. Okay, so went to Analytics, Integration, FlowPlayer Plugin Guide, and then just scrolled down to where the code was here, and I basically copied this. Okay, so this is where the plugins all go. Now you'll actually notice that the code that FlowPlayer gives me is a little bit different than the code that TubeMogul uses here in terms of defining the files and everything else. It's okay, I mean they both work, they're just different ways of specifying it. My main concern here was to learn how to add plugins. So those are the resources that I used. TubeMogul, you know, integration guide for FlowPlayer, TubeMogul integration guide for JW Player, and then the JW Embedder documentation, and the demos, the installation demo for FlowPlayer, and then of course my favorite wizard here that creates the JW code. Okay, so I'll document those in the PDF, but those are the only 4 that I used, and you know, you only need 1 or 2 depending on which one you use for a player. So I'm going to show you both, but essentially you would only use 1. Typically you would use the wizard here if you're using JW Player, copy and paste the code, and then I'm going to show you exactly what the code looks like once you add the plugin. Okay, so this is the code that I went to figure out how to embed. So in other words, JW Player gives me, by default from the wizard, gives me this code. And then what I did was I went over to, you remember how I went up and looked up the plugin stuff here, right? And I saw this is how you added plugins. So I went back to my editor and added this code. So now what I want to do, see, this is the in-play plugin and these are the parameters. So the only one that I think in-play really requires is the player ID, but if you happen to have player ID, tracker ID, and so on, you can use that. So let's go back to my account. Where's my account here? We're going to go to my account. We're going to go into players. Okay, so the player that I want to use is JW Player. So the tracking ID, basically I copy this and I'm going to put that in my player ID. And then tracker ID, I go back into my TubeMogul account. Let me move this over a little closer and manage my trackers. And ACC, okay, I'm going to use Guru Coaching All, so that'll be this one. And I put that here. And then if I want to do, you know, the publisher ID, I could say Action Coaching JW Player. And if I want to keep track of the specific video, now these are optional, right? So you don't have to actually put these parameters, but it just allows you a detailed level of tracking. So the video here, I would say JW sample video, and the display name, which is going to show up on my tracking, I would say JW sample video test. Okay. And now what I want you to notice that I did a little bit differently this time though is that I actually created a standalone HTML file. So in other words, I took the code from JW Player, which is this code and the script code, and I put it into a standalone HTML file for a couple of reasons. So one is I wanted to show you, how to do it with a standalone HTML file, and the other one is I'm going to show you how to embed this into your blog post. So what you'll do is you'll just create a regular file in HTML, starts with HTML, and then you put the script, which is the JW Player, you put that inside the head and /head parameters, which usually, it's right up at the top of the file underneath the HTML tag. You'll usually see head, and here you'll find things like title and description and keywords and all that kind of stuff. So this is just the header part of the file. It's not, it's the sort of initialization phase, and it brings in the code that it's going to use, but it doesn't actually execute anything. Then the body, which is where the HTML code that is executed starts, then I just pasted the JW Player code. So what does that look like? Well, let's go have a look. If I go to gurucoaching.com/videostats inplay jw.html. And by the way, you can type this. You should be able to play, and there you go. So you see the. Okay, so I've embedded that into my HTML file. I don't have anything else on the page, just that simple player, but that gives you an idea. So if you actually want to see this and want to copy it into your own HTML pages or whatever, you want to use the same code that I'm using for the player, just view the page source, right? And it's right there. And just copy this and put it into your own HTML file, and then just make sure that you change these things so that they point to your player, to your video, to your trackers, and so on. But essentially you have that all done for you. Okay. You can also, if you wanted to, just save the page as something. Okay. So that's the JW Player, and the same thing basically happens with, let's go there, basically happens with the InPlay for the Flow Player. So look at the code for this. Okay, and so if you take this out, which is the plugin code, okay, this is the code essentially that Flow Player tells me that I should use to watch a video, right? This is the video that it's going to play. Sorry, this is the Flow Player, the Flow Player, the actual player control. This is the video that it's playing, and then again, I created this kind of whole HTML file around it with the head section where I put the script for the Flow Player. Okay. And this is just how you install the Flow Player. Now again, this is just something I'm borrowing from the I'm using from the TubeMogul domain, but of course you want to install this on your own domain and you want to point to your own script. Same thing here, right? You don't want to be using flowplayer.org. You're going to have it installed on your own domain, and then this will be the name of your own video or group of videos. Here, this is actually a playlist, so you can have multiple videos, but we're going to demonstrate it with one. So then what we want to do here to the standard kind of thing is we want to add the plugin for the InPlay to monitor the number of plays it gets. Okay, so there it is again, and like I said, don't worry too much about what it all means. Just copy and paste it. It's the easiest way. And then what we're going to want to do, let's go ahead and pick up those. Okay, so this is the tracking ID. Whoops. And we're going to put that here. And get the players. And so now this is the Flow Player. So we're going to use the different tracking ID. And we're going to identify this player there. And then we're going to say publisher ID. So that's going to be ACC, let's just call it Action Coaching Club. And this will be the sample Flow player video, and this will be sample flow player video test. Okay, these are up to you. You can make up these names. Something that's going to, so that when they show up in the TubeMogul in-play stats, you're going to be able to recognize what they are. Okay, so again, these last things, I think, in fact, that they're all optional. But I like to add them anyway. It's just better tracking. Now, if you're going to save this this doc type HTML, you probably want to get a real HTML editor. There's a longer string of standards and so on. If you have an HTML editor, just open it up, and by default it'll have these tags for you. But the thing that you really care about is that you open with the HTML tag, you have the head and end head section, and then you have the body and end body section, and then within the body you put your player code. Okay, so if we change, and again, you can just go to the site, play this, download it, copy it, whatever you want. Just make sure that you go through and you change all of the files so that they point to your domains and to your files. So let's save that. And then if we go to Guru Coaching, I think this should say Flow. Okay, there's the Flow player, right?
TubeMogul, easily distribute your videos with one upload to the top video and social networking sites.
Okay, so that's now what we've done. Now, as you go and watch these two videos, gurucoaching.com /inplay-flow.html and inplay-jw.html, over time, I'm going to be able to go back into my TubeMogul stats area for my account, and I'm actually going to be able to look at the stats in play, right? And so what I'm going to be able to see is how many views you had, where you're located, whether you embedded this into your website or not, how engaged you were in the video, how much you watched, where the traffic came. So all of these stats are available to you simply by doing what I just did, right? And so what I recommend, in fact, and we talked about this before, is that you actually create an HTML file and associate it with your video. In other words, if you have your video on a particular domain and folder, then I recommend you actually create an HTML file and put it in the same folder, the same location as your video file. And the reason for that is because then all you have to do is play that HTML file, and no matter where you are, what website, whatever, it's going to work reliably, number one. And then number two is, if you wanted to change the look and feel, like say tomorrow you wanted to use JW Player instead of Flow Player, you simply change the HTML file, and everywhere that you're playing the video automatically updates. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. So we can get rid of these probably at this point. Okay, back to File Manager. So I have these two files, right? inplay-flow and inplay-jw. And what I'm going to do is now head over to the blog, coaching.com/WP. Okay, and let's pretend this was your blog, and you wanted to put those two videos on your blog. Well, I happen to have a page that I set up, and I have it displayed as in-play iframes. So we mentioned iframes before, and here's what iframes are. Iframe is this tag, this command, that basically says insert the contents of this file right here where the code is, in a window 600 pixels wide by 409 pixels high, and don't allow any scrolling, so no scroll bars on the side. In fact, I'm going to go one step further and say, and I don't even want to see a frame border. Okay, so it's not going to have any frames, not frames, borders around the edge. Frame border equals 0. Okay. Now again, you don't have to worry about what all this means. Just copy it as it is, and just change this to point to the file that you want to display, the width and the height that you want to display. Okay, so now if you remember, I'm using a plugin called Raw, and Raw basically says to the editor, I'm going to give you some HTML code, don't interpret it, just send it to the browser exactly as is. Okay, and that's just an easy way for you to add, you know, stuff like JavaScript and HTML inside a WordPress page or post. So let's do one at a time here. Okay, so we can see it better, right? So what we're looking at here is we're saying insert the contents of the file in play-jw.html into this. So I'm going to preview this. Okay, there I go. I've just brought my video from the location where it currently resides, and I'm putting it using the inline frame. I'm putting it inside my blog. Now let me just show you how this works if you were to change the size of the window. Okay, see? So now the window, instead of being out this far, it's a lot smaller, right? But what that means is you're not going to display the whole video. So this side of the video got cut off, right? This much of the video. So what the iframe really is it's saying, see, you can see the outline of it here. It's saying display the file on this web page inside a window right in here. Okay, and that's what we're doing. So we're actually importing it, if you will, from where it resides on my website, and we're displaying it on that location in the blog. Okay, so let's put this back up, and we'll just make this 410. And then, of course, if I want to, I can add a new line, and I can also import my flow player. Okay, so now what I'm saying is, so now actually I could do something here that says this is the JW player, whoops, example, and I think I can put a new line here, and then I can say here, this is the flow player example, new line. Okay, and if I preview the changes, see what's happening? Here's what I type, here's my page, and then this is the iframe, and then this is my page, my text, and this is the flow player iframe. Now notice here, it looks like it's cutting off the bottom just a little bit, so what I would probably do in here is put the height to 405. Okay, see, now it's displaying the whole thing fully. Okay, so that's a really easy way to bring videos into your blog, right? Now the thing is, let's say tomorrow I wanted, let's say that tomorrow I wanted to replace this video player. So instead of the standard JW player, I wanted to use a flow player, or maybe I wanted to add an HD option plugin, or maybe I wanted to do put a splash page in front of it or something like that. Well, all I have to do is go to the index file and change it. The blog automatically inherits the changes. So the cool thing about that is that means that you can actually put this little snippet of code anywhere. You could put it on your fan page. You could, if there's room, if the video fits, you could put it on your Facebook fan page. You could put it on your Postgres. You could put it on your blog. You can put it on your WordPress.com blog, your main domain blog. Put it everywhere that you want. And if it ever changes in the HTML file, all of your content everywhere automatically gets updated. So maybe you edited the video, right? So you're going to edit the video, you change it, you point it to another file, the HTML file changes, but since the video and the code, the absolute location is not here, you're bringing it in from your website, makes it very easy for you to change and very easy for you to migrate to as many different properties as possible. Okay, so that's why I recommend you use that format. Now, I just want to remind you real quickly that this is a plugin called Raw HTML, and it really helps to be able to put in whenever you're putting HTML inside your WordPress editor. This will basically leave it on so that the editor doesn't mess with it. Okay, so that's one cool plugin I wanted to show you, which was the Raw HTML. The other one that I wanted to show you, which is really cool, is a thing called Shortcoder. Okay, now in Shortcoder, let me just update this, make it permanent. Shortcoder is very cool because what it allows you to do is it allows you not to have to even, so if you wanted, instead of the iframe here, if you didn't want to have to type in all the width equals, height equals, and all that kind of stuff, and in fact you could put the actual code for your player, the one that I had in the HTML file, you could put it in here, you could give it a name here like InPlay JW1, and basically what you're telling WordPress is wherever I ask you to insert InPlay JW1, insert this code. Okay, so let me show you what that means. So I'm going to, just for fun, go to a different page like my About page. Okay, and what I'm going to say is here, I'm going to use the short coder for the short code that I defined called InPlay JW01. Okay, and so what I'm saying is however I define this, whatever code I put in there, that's what I want to display here in this location. So what does this look like? Look at there. It actually embedded my file. So if you have a hard time trying to remember all the different ways, you know, to write your iframes and all that kind of stuff, you could just make a short code, and what shortcoder does is allows you to just give it a name and not worry about any coding or HTML or JavaScript or anything like that. You just go ahead and input it. Now the really cool thing about it, I also have one called to, and this allows me to define the source of the video. So let me just let me see what the source actually is here, because I've forgotten. Oh, that's not what I want to see. Hold on. Okay, so let's say I want to take this video. Okay, so I'm playing this file. This is the video file that I'm playing. Okay, so what I could do with the way I defined that is I could actually say use the parameter that I give you. Right? And if I had code inside the short code, like if instead of the iframe to this, if I actually had this code as my short code, I would here, instead of putting the name of the file, I would say replace this with whatever the person specifies. So in other words, you could have this player, this tracker, inside your short code, and then you can specify the different parameter here. You could even make it so that you have the ability to change the height and the width simply by saying something like you know, source equals this, and then height equals 120, width equals 50, something like that. Okay, and so what shortcode would do is it would go look at the InPlay, and it would say, oh well, what InPlay says is let's put all of this code into the browser, except make it a width of 50 and a height, or excuse me, make it a width of 120 and a height of 50, and use the file name that they specify. So now this becomes almost like a little piece of code, a little piece of software. You don't have to do this all the time. You don't have to key all of this type in. You don't have to remember it. If you want to change something, and let's say you use this player all through your blog, post after post, page after page, and then suddenly, you know, Flow Player says, oh, by the way, instead of version 3.2.0, you can use 3.2.1. Well, now you don't have to go and change every single individual blog post or page. You just go into your short code, change this from 0 to 1, and boom, everywhere you use the short code, now it's going to display the new content. Okay, very cool once you start using this, how many different complex scripts and JavaScripts and PHP and everything you can use, and you never have to remember it at all. All you have to do is type it in once, and then from that point on, you just have to remember the name you gave it. Okay, so this is a very cool plugin. It's a little bit advanced, it's a little ninja, but especially if you're going to be using video code, like for example, let's do this. Okay. I hope I'm not going to blow myself up again, but let's give this a try. So let's say I did raw and raw. And let me take this out. Okay, so now I'm embedding, instead of using the iframe, I'm embedding the code directly into my page. So let's see if that'll work. Okay, so it still works, right? So that part is good. But let's say I want to embed this code in like 50 other posts on my blog. Well, I don't want to have to remember all of this every time. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take this script, I'm going to take this code. Okay, let me just copy it for now. And I'm going to go to my short coder. And I'm going to define something, let's call it inline video player. Okay. Well, let's just call it inline video to make it easy to type. And then I'm going to take all that code and paste it in here. Okay. So this is basically telling the plugin, wherever I type in inline video, I want you to replace that tag with all of this code. Okay, so let's save it and see how it works. The preview, yeah, the preview is working, great. So now we'll go back to edit our page. Where'd it go? Page. Go to the about. Okay, and now all I have to say is shortcode name equals inline video. And we should, if everything goes well, we should see this work just the same way. And there you go. Okay, so now that's a cool thing, but now let's get even cooler. So let's update this. And let's say, go to shortcoder. And I'm going to say, well, let me get to the right thing here, inline video. Okay, and I'm going to say, oops, quiet. Oh, I see I have the demo going down here. Okay, stop that. And then so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, I don't want to have the name of the video be the same all the time. So I don't want it to always play this video. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow the user to specify through a parameter called source. Okay. So see here, the URL was replaced with this thing that says the user will specify the file name. Okay, so I'm going to update this and now go back to the page and go to the about page. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say source equals, okay, preview those changes, and there you go. Now let me just so what the cool thing about this is now is that you have the player code and you have the tracking code, and you all inside your shortcode. You never have to worry about retyping all of that funky, Flow Player, JW Player code. All you have to do is give it this name and then call it up as a shortcode, specify the video that you want to play, and you're done. And you could put whatever video you want here that the Flow Player will recognize. And of course you could again, you could change not just the source file, but you could require the person who's typing the shortcode here, namely yourself probably, to also specify the width and the height. So maybe on some pages you have a 600 pixel wide page. Maybe on a post you have 400 pixels wide, and you want to adjust the player accordingly, so that you would go into shortcoder and you would say the height and width is not fixed. It's specified by the person who's editing the post. And so the cool thing is all of that funky JavaScript, HTML, plugin code, curly brackets, angle brackets, commas, all that stuff, you don't have to worry about it. You store it in your shortcode once, and from that point on, all you have to remember is to call up the name of the video, give it the parameters, and you're good to go. Okay? So these are two of the funkiest ninja plugins that I like to use a lot, and I recommend you play around, because once you start using it, it's amazing how many different ways you're going to find to use it. Okay. Okay, now the cool thing, of course, in all of this is that every time I've been clicking and playing videos, I've been also tracking it in my TubeMogul. So I'm not going to go look now, but I'm going to say to you guys, go and play around with those two files and watch the video. Just watch as long as you want, as many times as you want, whatever else. And then I'm just going to see what happens on the stats, and I'll show them to you next week or on Thursday, you know, how the stats show up on TubeMogul in play. Okay, so I think they're probably in real time, but we don't need to spend the time. We'll just have a quick look on Thursday to show you. If you go and watch the videos, play around, do whatever you want, watch the Flow player, watch the JW player, and then I'll show you what all your activity, how it shows up on my video statistics dashboard. Okay, let's see if you got some questions. So let me just finish this off real quick. Okay, so here's the code for the JW player. Okay, now this is probably the easiest way to do it. Just copy and paste this from your PDF file. And just remember, you want to replace these things here like yourdomain.com. You want to have it point to where your JW player is. And in fact, this line should only appear once. I have it twice, but I'll delete it in the final copy. And then you want to put your domain here. Wherever you upload your JW player, you want to point to it here, and then of course your own video file name you want to put in here. And you want to replace, this is the plugins code for InPlay, and you just want to replace all of these IDs with your own IDs. Okay, and then off you go. Now I want you to also, I mean, if you're looking at this and you're going, geez, every video I'm going to play is going to have, you know, I'm going to have to go through this with every one. Well, you can, or you can just simply track it to a video player. But the truth is, you got to specify your file name for the video somewhere. So what I would normally do is I would put this in an HTML file, and then iframe the HTML file into my blog. And then no matter how many different places it appears, I can go in and I can just change one file, and then everywhere it appears automatically changes. Okay. So I would save this code, for example, into videoplayer1.html, and then I would embed basically that HTML file into my blog. And then if it appears on my blog and on my website and on a number of different sites, if I ever want to change the size of the video or the video that I'm using, I go to my HTML file, I change it, and everywhere that HTML file is embedded automatically updates. Okay, so that's what I recommend you consider doing as well. So that's the JW player. That's the code that you're going to copy and paste to create your JW player plugin and tracking, and this is the code for your Flow player. And again, you need to install Flow player on your website, so then make sure you put your domain here, make sure you put your domain here, and make sure that it's pointing to your video file here. Okay, and of course, after you set up your InPlay, make sure that your player, your trackers, and all these things are your own. Now these last three, publisher, video, and display name, they're optional. In fact, so is tracker. So you don't have to use all of them, but I do it just as a matter of course, just so you don't forget. And if you don't want to leave these things in, just make them empty. Just put double quotes so that later on you can remember that if you want to, there's a publisher, video ID, and a display name. Okay, so again, you could just copy and paste this into your HTML files and import them into your player. Now, the resources that I want to bring to your attention are, so these are the pages on Longtail Video and TubeMogul InPlay that you should check out, and look around flowplayer.org, and then also what I'd like for you to do, to make this a little bit easier, there's forget the first line for just a second. There's WordPress plugins for both players, okay, and they're in the WordPress plugins directory. So if you, for example, were to hop over, let me just go to plugins here, whoops, and you add a new plugin and you say JW player, and there it is right there, JW, and you want the one by Longtail Video, which is the creator of the player. Okay, and then you can do a similar thing with Flow player, and there you go. The first one up there now is the one that you will want to use. Almost a 5-star rating, and all you have to do is install now. and then activate the plugin, which I won't because it'll conflict with my other JW Player plugin, but you would activate this. Oh, let me just go ahead and activate it. Okay, and there you go. So there you can see I have the Flow Player plugin and the JW Player plugin. Okay, I'm going to deactivate this. Oh, you know what? I wonder if that's what's causing the problem here. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Okay, and that should be it. All right, so check these plugins out. They might make your life a little bit easier, and it'll avoid you having to dig under the hood and work with all that HTML code. And then the other thing that you might be interested in looking for is that both of these players also have analytics plugins. So if you prefer to use Google Analytics to track, to track the clicks and the plays and all these other parameters as well, then they do have ways to do that as well. And you just look up the documentation under JW Player and also under Flow Player. You will find, like if you look here for, let's go for plugins, and you type in, oh, there it is right there, Google Analytics Pro. Okay, and it'll tell you exactly how to set that up. You'll notice here there's also Tube Mogul plugin. Okay, so you can just go to get all the documentation here on JW Player, and the same thing will happen here. If you go to plugins, you'll see that there's an analytics plugin right at the top here. So you could just plug this right into your Google Analytics instead of using TubeMogul InPlay. Okay, so if that's what you prefer, have everything under your analytics account, then both these players will also support that. Okay, so so that's it. I think I'm going to stop while I'm behind, as they say, and open up to any questions that you have. Okay, June is back. Oh, June, hey, welcome back. Electricity's back, huh? All right, Ulrika says, how does this relate to videos hosted on YouTube or Dailymotion? Well, you're gonna want to look at these things here. Here, okay. So if what you're talking about isn't listed here, and it looks like it's not, then what they're saying here is contact the platforms to see how you can get them in your account. So YouTube and Dailymotion are not listed here, so you will probably want to either contact TubeMogul or YouTube and Dailymotion, and you probably want to do a custom player integration. So typically the way that would work, you want to make sure that YouTube allows plugins, okay, because this works as a plugin, and you want to make sure that Dailymotion allows plugins. So what you would do is basically contact them or look up the documentation and say, how do I add a plugin to my player? And then when you embed the player, you just make sure that you actually use it. Now the other thing that you could do is you could just use JW Player or Flow Player to play videos from that, that are on YouTube. I think you can do that anyway. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't tried that before, but I know that there's ways to play YouTube videos but without using the YouTube player. So possibly you can do it with that as well. But more than likely what you're going to want to do is just make sure that the service that you provide actually allows plugins, and then ask them how to integrate a plugin, and then just take the parameters from what they tell you and fit in all of the parameters from here. Okay, you probably want to look at this as an installation guide for Flash players. Follow this, and right, so here it is, right? There's a whole bunch of APIs here, so you might want a technical guide to help you with that, and that looks pretty scary to me. Okay, now their claim to fame here is any player, any platform, anytime, right? So there should be a way to do it, but obviously if YouTube doesn't support plugins, then you have to get a little technical with it, in which case you might want some help. So embed source, what's that again? The embed source is the code that, for example, let's go to the wizard again, and if you go down here, this is the embed source. And all that means is that you need this source to embed the video player on your website. In order, to embed it means to make it appear on your website. Okay, and there are different kinds of embedding. There's object embedding, there's Flash embedding, there's Swift embedding, all that kind of thing, right? And don't worry too much about it. The very simplest that you can use is this embed code, right? Starts with object, ends with object, and then there's an embed in between. This is actually better to go across most browsers, this embed code, but it is a little bit more complicated to work with and a little bit more restrictive if you want to get, you know, into a lot more control over your video player. But if all you want to do is play a video, this is going to work just fine for you. So choose one of the methodologies. You know, normally people lately prefer the Swift embed, but this works just fine as well. Choose one of them and stick with it as consistently as you can. That'll be the easiest thing. And once again, you know, you might want to think about putting this inside an HTML file. And then, so think of it this way. Let's say that you created a file called ulrika.com/video1.html, and you put this code in there, right? So now everybody embeds your code. They take the HTML file. I put it on my blog. Somebody puts it on their website. Somebody else refers to it, and so on. And then you realize, you know what? There's a new video player. There's this new, now instead of FLV, I want to use an MP4 file. And instead of the this simple embed, I want to use the JW embed function, which supports HTML5 playback. Well, now all you have to do is go on to ulrika.com and edit the file, video1.html, change the contents of it so that it now supports HTML5 and it now supports a whole bunch of other parameters. You save it to the file, and me and everybody else who's using that HTML file on our web pages, now we suddenly have either a whole new video format. You know, now we're playing, whereas before we might have been playing your original Swift file, now we're playing your MP4 file, and now we're HTML5 compatible, right? So instead of embedding this code directory across all the pages, put it into an HTML file and embed the HTML file everywhere. Then as soon as you update the HTML file, everywhere it's embedded automatically gets updated to the latest and greatest technology. Okay, Tarek says your Flash player is crashing. Yes, that's right. You were doing an awesome job. Thanks for the reassurance, Tarek, but I was a little sloppy tonight. Anyway, hey, that's live. Julie says, could you use this for YouTube channel? And if so, demo it a little. I don't use YouTube, so I'm not 100% sure how to use this, Julie. But I don't see YouTube listed in the parameters here, so I think that there must be something funky that you need to do with that. And my guess is that you're probably going to use what they call flash vars to pass parameters to YouTube to the player, but you want to know that YouTube actually supports using plugins, because, you know, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I really don't know, because I'm not a big YouTube user. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to research that, or you know, maybe defer it to you to check with the YouTube folks. I'm actually curious now. I'm going to go look into myself, and I'll see if I can follow up with you. What I'm talking about right now really is, you know, when you're using your own player and you want to track your videos, because, you know, really, if it's on YouTube, you can go into your YouTube account and check all that, even though it'd be great to put under one roof, but it's not hurting you to look at the YouTube stats. But but things like opt-in pages and sales letters and all that kind of stuff that YouTube doesn't always like for you to have on their portal, and that you want to have on specific websites or specifically like member content. So the back 70% of the video usage that most of us have, instead of the front 30% for marketing, that's what this is intended to address tonight. And I'm afraid I need to check with somebody who's more of a YouTube expert before I can answer that question for you, Julie. Julie says, I've never been successful getting a Flow Player to work on my WordPress site, so everything is either on YouTube or Vimeo. Well, you know, oddly enough, tonight, wouldn't you know it, Flow Player turned out to be the easier one to do. How weird is that? So there you have it, right? And I think the thing to do with Flow Player, Julie, is when you go into the demos, this is how I finally figured it out, is I looked at the thing that I wanted to do. So here, for example, I want to use div tag, and I go into that, and then usually what they have here, let me see if I can find it. Hopefully it doesn't make a liar out of me. There you go. It has a standalone version, and the reason they put the standalone version is so that you can take a look at the source code, and then you can just model exactly what they're doing. This got nothing in here except what you need to make this video player work. So as long as you have the Flow Player, as long as you've installed the Flow Player files and you point to them directly on your websites, then basically this is the code right here. This is all you need. And does it work? Well, yeah, because it's working on this page, right? So that's how I got it working. I just basically copied and pasted from the source code here and changed the video file pointers and things like that. Okay, Julie says, thank you for the recommendation of raw HTML. Yeah, it's a goodie. I've totally had that disappear thing happen so many times on Visual. Yep. And by the way, I'm not sure that it totally gets rid of that problem with Visual. It helps a lot for sure, but as you saw before, it can sort of mess up the code because that goofy editor that comes with WordPress is just mind-bogglingly weird. Tarek says sometimes it's better to disable visual mode to be on the safe side. Yeah, I think so. Whenever you're doing JavaScript and these kinds of embeds and anything else, I always, by default I tend to work in HTML mode. So if you happen to go back into Visual, so what Tarek is saying is, like, let's say you're merrily working along and you're editing your page, and then I'm going to just copy this so I don't lose it here. Okay, and then you happen to go into Visual and start editing here. This is my visual mode. And then you go, oh, I just had Flash in there. And you go back to HTML. Oh, lucky, it happens to have preserved it because I'm using the raw plugin. But if you weren't using the raw plugin, or for some reason this still, flipping back and forth, see, sometimes it just makes it look weird. Then this is a big pain in the where to straighten out. And so what Tarek is saying is, why not just disable the visual so you don't inadvertently hop back and forth and have to deal with this? See, because it changes even the raw tags. This is the weirdest editor that I know. So yeah, you may want to just, if you have the tendency to flip back and forth between these, and when you do that, you may want to work strictly in HTML. It's a good idea, Tarek. Can you explain what iframe something means? Yeah, so maybe I'll draw this out for you. So think of it a little bit like picture in picture, and imagine that say this is your website or your blog page, and then on your host, so let's say this is called ulrika.com, you have a file called video.html. Oops. Video.html. So and let's say that in video.html you have the code that actually displays your video. Okay. Now that has nothing else in there, it just has the code to display the video. And this is the file, video.html. And now in your blog you're merrily posting along, and then you go, oh, I want to display the video right here. So what you want to do is you want to take this HTML file and you want to say, I want it to appear right here. Okay, and there's an HTML command which is iframe, which basically means, I think it means internal frame, which basically means take this space and fill it here with whatever is in this file. Now this iframe could be a picture, could be a file, could be a program, could be whatever else. Basically it's like you're just reserving a space on your website and saying, I'm not going to type what's in here. I just want to inherit, I just want to import it. I just want this to display whatever this thing is. And in this case, it's a video player. So you'll see the video player. Now, what does that mean? So if I have another website myself, let's say this is your website, Ulrika, and this is Lou, and I do the same thing. I put an iframe in here, and now I'm displaying the same video code. And then, maybe John has an iframe, and they're displaying video code using, see what we're doing is we're pulling in from the same source and displaying it somewhere on our websites and pages. So what that means is, if you could change this video altogether and make video 2, replace this video, you could change the video player, you could change the type of file that it's producing, you can even change, from flow player to JW player to whatever else. And because these are not actually coded here, they're just saying display content in here from here, import it, then basically all of the pages that are using the iframe get updated with whatever you do here. Okay, so iframe is, think about it as importing a frame. A subsection of a page is called a frame, and you're importing an internal frame into your blog page. Now, if you want to look at the how to do iframes, you can Google that for HTML iframe, and that'll show you how to do it. But it's basically just a tag, okay, and it will look something like this. Iframe source equals, and let's say this was ulrika.com/video.html, and then you could put parameters like, do you want a border around it? Do you want to auto scroll? How wide, how high it is? There's a whole bunch of parameters, and then you just close that, and then you close the iframe tag. Okay, and what this is basically saying is, at this point on my web page, I want to display whatever's inside this file. And again, this could be, it generally is a file, but you could have in the HTML file, you could have a picture, you could have text, you could have a video, you can have whatever you want. Anything that goes on an HTML file, you can include it, and then as soon as I iframe it, whatever you have in your HTML file appears here on my web page. Okay. So Tarek is asking also about, is there a way to track YouTube videos? Again, I'm afraid I'm going to have to defer that one. And Julie says, okay, I'll try that out. Awesome. Carla says, is it best to post my video on YouTube and then link that to my blog, or upload it directly to my blog and upload it to YouTube separately? There are different schools of thought on this. What I would typically tend to do, I think, is probably put it on YouTube, but I would embed it on my blog and then drive traffic to my blog. I want to put it on YouTube so that it has all of the benefits of being on YouTube. But truthfully, I want more often than not, I would prefer people watching it on my blog. And so, I could go ahead and create another version of it and host it on Amazon and then put it onto my blog. But if it's something that exists on YouTube already, if I want it on YouTube, if it's a marketing piece or a lead generation piece or something like that, then I can just embed it onto my blog directly. Now, if it's a content piece, again, it sort of depends on your strategy. Do you want traffic to your YouTube page, or do you want traffic to your blog? Well, for me, I'd rather have them come to my blog. Why should I have YouTube get all that benefit? And I also want people to point, if they like the video, I want them to embed it from my URL, and I want them to track back and point to my blog URL if I can possibly do that. Because see, if people point to that YouTube video on my blog, and then they go to my blog and then they watch it, YouTube still counts that as a view, right? But I get the inbound links and the inbound embedding and all that stuff. But if I don't have it on my blog, I just have it on YouTube, then YouTube still counts the views, but I don't get any of the benefits of track backlinks and backlinks and references to the video on my blog. So wherever possible, I'll put it on my blog. But if it's strictly for lead generation and the purpose of the video is to get out into as many portals as possible and drive people to an opt-in page, unless I have a lot of traffic on my blog, I'm usually just going to put that on the video portals. Okay, so think about content on your blog and lead generation, not so much on your blog. Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to have time to look at your page just now, Carla, but hold on, let me get through some of the questions here. Ulrika says, thank you. You're welcome, Ulrika. Julie says, I do the YouTube channel the way you recommended, and it's totally helped my Google rankings for new keywords. Everything points back to my blog. There's my channel. Awesome. That's good news, Julie. So in this case, when Julie's talking about it, so she has marketing pieces that all show up on her channel, right? So people find her on YouTube and they watch all her videos and all that kind of stuff, and she gets the benefit of being on a channel and people on YouTube finding her, and she's coming up in the YouTube search engines and all that stuff. But the really cool thing about it is that all of these videos, and hopefully in the descriptions as well, there you go, right there. There's a link right back to Julie's blog. I'm assuming that's the blog. So what happens now is there's a lot of traffic here, and all that traffic gets redirected to the blog. Plus, every time there's a video on YouTube, this is another backlink from YouTube, which is a high authority site back to Julie's site. So nice way to, and if you're smart about it, you'll also, for example, instead of juliedowney.com, right, you'll also want to make sure that this is keyword rich with the keywords you want to get optimized for, and then YouTube will also take that link as being relevant to those keywords on your site. Okay, so great. This looks really great, Julie. This is really awesome. What a great channel. And there's Julie. I don't see you in one of these contorted positions here, but I'm sure that if I watched long enough, I'd see it. Okay. All right. And so Julie says, yep, a couple of college football players found me this way. Thank you, Lou. There you go. Wonderful. How did Julie get the YouTube to point back to her blog, asks Carla. Okay, I just showed you that. Now, so there's two places, right? So in the description, oops, let me scroll up. So in the description, Julie's got, actually, Julie here, you've got to put the HTTP in front of this or the link won't be live. Notice here, this is not actually an active link. You want it to be an active link. And so what you want to do is, like in this one, you have the HTTP:// in front of it. So this is an active link back to your page. Okay, so that's how she does it. If the first thing in your description is your URL, it'll be active. And then this is the other thing she does. She points people to it from the video. There you go. Great job, Julie. Okie doke. Any other questions about video? So we're a minute to go. So Carl, if it's okay with you, let's talk Thursday about your question about the site, because I'm going to probably want to, I'm going to have to get off a little bit early here tonight. And Julie says, I annotate at the beginning and at the end. Okay, great. but this one's not annotated at the end. Oh, you mean on the video, right? Okay, so there should be something if we go towards the back end. Is that what you mean? You annotate on the video? Or are you talking? There it is, right there. Yep, perfect. Now, Julie, you have the blog, and in the beginning you don't have the /blog. I noticed that, right? That this is just juliedowney.com. You may want to think about making that consistent. Think about where you want folks to go, and in fact, ideally, this is really great if you bring it to a place where they can opt in as well. So if your opt-in offer is better on your main domain, bring them there. If your opt-in offer is better on your /blog, bring them there. Okay. Yeah, so make that the same. That's actually where to go there. Yeah, perfect. And then it looks like here you're bringing them to your main page, so you want to just keep that all consistent. Now, if you put a video together here that specifically teaches a technique, for example, and then says go see the other 5 videos in this series about this technique, then you would bring them directly to juliedowney.com /technique, right? And then that will get the opt-in. And you want to then you want to put that here, you want to put it here, you want to put it at the back, everywhere. So just optimize and think about what your most wanted outcome is when they click through that destination, and see it as a sequence. All right. So that was that. Well, guys, this hopefully tonight you've witnessed what can happen when you go live, and hey, that's just the way things. It's just the way the ball bounces sometimes. And I'm going to, just because I'm stubborn and I can't understand what happened, I'm going to go try one more thing, and if it crashes, it crashes, because we're basically done. So I was playing around on this page before, and let me just take off this thing here, and if I preview, okay, watch. Ah, it crashes again. Nope, it didn't. Not. Come on. Yeah, it did crash. Oh my God. Okay, so now I'm sure that it's just this browser. There we go. Here we go. Now I got all 3 browsers going there, all 3 videos. Okay, so one of these is just the regular embed code. This one is the Flow player, and this one is my JW player. Okay, good. It's I dare not press these buttons. Oh, what the heck? We're done. Let's give it a shot. Hey, it's working. Have I gone too far? Come on, show me. Well, I'm still moving, so that's a good thing. Okay, so I think I must have just had. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there's something weird. When I was testing it, I was testing it on my main account. This is a sub account I call Webinars, that I use just for my Ludalo account seems to work fine. There's something weird about the plugins on this thing here. So I'm going to go back and re-record this for you if I can on the other account, and then we'll be all good. Okay. And as Ulrika is suggesting, think about webmasters and virtual assistants. They'll save you all of this. But anyway, away we go. Okay, let me shut that down to make sure we don't crash. Good. So with that, hopefully I've given you some options for tracking your video stats, and would encourage you to look at both the Google Analytics. If you're a real Google Analytics person, then check that out and look at the plugins for that. And but I would recommend you look at the in-play stats, because they actually are a little bit easier to use and they're far more comprehensive than the analytics ones. So give it a go, play around, do it on something where the video isn't live, where you can afford a little mishap or two, like the one that we experienced tonight. And then once you work it all out and got it running smooth, then you're going to love being able to watch how people consume your videos, especially if you do a lot of video marketing. This is really valuable information. I don't run a launch now without watching the video tracking. In fact, I had a client recently ran a launch, and she said, we just opened the doors and nobody's buying anything. And I said, okay, give me the video stats. And we went through the video stats, made a few changes, and she turned that into a very successful launch within 3 days. Turned into like, well, I actually can't mention the numbers, but suffice it to say, it was a big turnaround. And it was all due to testing and tracking. That launch would have flopped, and as it is, she made more money than, as much money as some of her other launches. And she does very well. Okay, so really important stuff. This is not just for the for the sake of having something to do. This is really actionable information. And when we talk about knowing your customers' fears, frustrations, needs, desires, this is a great way to do it without having to survey them or anything else. Okay, so so do take it to heart and give it a shot, and hopefully you'll have a little bit more luck than I did tonight. Okay, so with that, I'll say thanks and good night. As always, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Because you're here, I get to do this work, which is fun, it's fulfilling, and I always enjoy being in this conversation with you. So we'll meet again on Thursday for a Q&A coaching call, and I'll redo the recording here for you and put the clean version up for you in the members area, so that it'll be nice and easy for you to do. And I hope that you'll start using video analytics right away. So till we meet the next time, thanks, good night, namaste.